So do we
Caitlin's going to have to start all over again. I'm very sorry.
Yeah, so let's just, let's get all the board members on camera. I see them flipping on. Perfect, yes, we've got quorum to proceed. Caitlin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening again, members of the board, Secretary Polhemus, and Director Jemison. Again, my name is Caitlin Coppinger. I'm the interim housing manager at the BPDA and project manager for the project before you tonight. The proposal before you is for the Plan Development Area Master Plan Approval, or Article 80C, for Dorchester Bay City in the Columbia Point, Seven Hill neighborhood of Dorchester. A PDA master plan is a proposal for the concept, planning objectives, character, the development, and proposed uses as a defined area. This master plan is the first of many steps in the Article 80 process to be able to move towards construction. The PDA master plan must be followed by an Article 80C PDA development plan for each phase. Second, each building or set of buildings must go through Article 80B large project review. Each approval is subject to a robust regulatory review by the BPDA staff, approval by the BPDA board, and a rigorous community process. The plan being proposed is on an approximately 36-acre site collectively known as Dorchester Bay City. 19 of the 36 acres are owned by the UMass Building Authority, or better known as UMBA. In 2019, UMass went through a disposition process for this site in order to create a revenue stream to fund much-needed capital improvements on their Boston campus. The UMass Building Authority selected Accordia Partners, who is the project proponent, as their preferred developer through a competitive RFP process. The proposed project, when complete, will consist of 21 buildings, contain approximately 6.1 million square feet, comprising of a mix of office, lab, research and development, residential, retail, restaurant, commercial, community, cultural, and other uses, as well as accessory and ancillary parking, the creation of an extensive new street system to accommodate pedestrians, bicyclists, motor vehicles, and approximately 11.4 acres of public realm improvements, and the creation of approximately 8.3 acres of new open space. The review process for Dorchester Bay City began in 2020. Since that time, the development team has worked with the BPDA team, the Boston Civic Design Commission, and other city departments on reviewing and refining the project. My colleagues, not only at the BPDA, but in other partner agencies such as DCR, Mass DOT, and the MBTA, have worked through many charrettes, working groups, and workshops with the development team to arrive at today's master plan. That includes significant infrastructure investment and resiliency improvements to bring the master plan in front of you one step closer to implementation. In parallel to this, the project has been greatly improved through a robust community engagement process with the Morrissey Boulevard CAC and the remainder of the Dorchester and surrounding communities. The BPDA has hosted a combination of 20 CAC and public meetings, and the proponent has made community input a cornerstone of this process by having over 500 individual and group stakeholder meetings outside of the Article 80 process. The input from these stakeholders throughout all of the processes has been crucial in shaping the project that you'll see in front of you tonight. During these meetings, we heard feedback related to the project, but also for the need for long-term infrastructure investments in the corridor, significant resiliency efforts needed to protect not only the new development, but the surrounding portions of the Dorchester community, and the need for equitable housing on site. The PDA master plan provides a significant level of community benefits that addresses these concerns. The project filed its letter of intent on March 5th, 2020, which was before the affirmatively furthering fair housing zoning had been placed into effect. Because of this, because the proponent was committed to creating a housing program that was equitable, they voluntarily committed to the AFFH process. The key commitments from their housing proposal include a commitment to providing 20% of the residential units as income restricted through the BPDA's inclusionary development housing policy at an average of 70% AMI, a commitment to 10% of the units being family-sized, the commitment to further exploring the opportunity to deepen the affordability of units by exploring a partnership opportunity with the Boston Housing Authority to incorporate project-based vouchers or other types of subsidy to deepen the affordability. Above this, the proponent will contribute $10 million to the Massachusetts Affordable Housing Alliance STASH program, which is a down payment grants program to first-generation home buyers. Additionally, this project is expected to create over $53 million in linkage payments, in which the proponent is committing to paying the full linkage rates at the time of filing, except for the first two buildings, and paying the linkage payment in full at the time of building permit, allowing these funds to be utilized a lot quicker for affordable housing development. Tonight's housing proposal sets the floor for the housing program on site. The project will continue through the AFFH review, and when the proponent files both their development plan and their Article 80B approvals. The project site is currently a key flood path when high tides and other weather events cause periodic area flooding. The proponents will be implementing on-site resiliency measures that will eliminate two of the existing flood pathways into the area of Dorchester that are identified in the Coastal Resiliency Solutions for Dorchester report, published by the City of Boston in October 2020. In addition, the Bayside proponent will construct, as part of phase 1 of the project, an earthen raised bridge flood protection system from the southern edge of the Bayside site to its northern edge to help protect the project site and the surrounding area from periodic flooding and storm events. Finally, the Bayside proponent has agreed to contribute $5 million to a DCR forest account to be used for the creation of a flood protection system within the Dorchester Shores reservation adjacent to the Harbor Point apartments, as called for in Climate Ready Dorchester. This protection system will address a third floodway into the path area. The project will also include an array of on-site and off-site transportation system improvements that are designed to address existing transportation network conditions and deficiencies in the area. The creation of a new publicly accessible street system that prioritizes pedestrians and bicyclists, new public bike sharing stations, and direct funding from the project to catalyze and support the design and implementation of public agency transportation and transit improvements in the area. As stated previously in my remarks, the vote in front of you tonight is a PDA master plan, which is a proposal for the concept, planning objectives, character of the development, and proposed uses of the area that you will further hear about in tonight's presentation. Because of the scale of this project, the board will see 3 additional PDA development plans in relation to today's master plan and individual building Article 80B approvals. I want to recognize once again the role of the Morrissey Boulevard CAC, Dorchester community, and our local elected officials in bringing us here. It should be noted that we have support from the Dorchester and South Boston delegation, and you'll be hearing from some of them tonight. It has been a pleasure to work with this community that has pushed the project to be better at every step of the way, and I look forward to continuing this partnership going forward. I am now going to turn it over to Christina Rico from the planning team to further define the planning context. Then we will turn it over to Kirk Sykes and Dick Galvin from the development team to further jump into their presentation.
Thank you, Caitlin. Good evening, Chair Rojas, esteemed members of the board, Director Jemison, and Madam Secretary. I am pleased to join you this evening to share with you the planning context that informed BPDA staff review of the proposed project, Planned Development Area Number 141, Dorchester Bay City. The project site covers more than 36 acres of land on the Columbia Point Peninsula in Dorchester, regulated by the provisions of zoning subdistricts, including Article 42A, General Business Subdistricts of the Harbor Park, Dorchester Bay, Neponset River Waterfront District, and Article 65, Community Commercial Subdistricts of the Dorchester Neighborhood District. Both subdistricts allow for the establishment of planned development areas in order to provide for a more flexible zoning law to provide benefits to the Dorchester community. The majority of the project site is also located within the Coastal Flood Resilience Overlay District and is subject to provisions established by Article 25A of the Code. Portions of the project site are subject to licensing under the Massachusetts Public Waterfront Act, referred to as Chapter 91, and its implementing regulations relating to building height and the provision of ground floor facilities of public accommodations. Next slide, please. Caitlin has already described the project in such detail that I will only add here that it is the opinion of BPDA staff that approvals sought at this time, which again are limited to the first step of a longer approvals process, support the planning vision for Columbia Point documented by the Columbia Point Master Plan adopted by this board in 2011, which established a vision for a transit-oriented, mixed-use community supported by new transportation and open space networks and improved recreational resources along the Dorchester Bay waterfront, and addresses resilience needs identified by Coastal Resiliency Solutions for Dorchester. And with that, I am pleased to turn it over to the proponent for a more detailed presentation.
Thank you. Thank you, Christina and Caitlin, because that amazingly detailed description will allow me to focus on more of the public benefits of this project, which is something we're really excited about. But first, I'd like to thank the BPDA board members, the BPDA director and staff, Mayor Wu, the elected officials, and very much the residents of the surrounding communities that attended more than 500 meetings of civic, municipal, nature, and public meetings that helped shape this project. So thank you tremendously. We are really excited to present Dorchester Bay City because we believe it embodies the collective vision of all the people we just mentioned to create a place in Boston that is inclusive, inviting, and promotes diversity, equity, inclusion, resiliency, and affordability. Next slide. Oh, actually stay on this slide. Sorry, go back. I apologize. So Accordia has assembled 36 acres comprised of 2 sites, which are shown in red here, to Morrissey and Bayside. Those sites are at the JFK Red Line stop that you see here. We're also fortunate to be located on the Columbia Point Peninsula, adjacent to our largest beach and 3rd largest park, but also the institutions of JFK Institute, RFK Institute, UMass Boston, BC High, and our neighbors at Harbor Point, just to name a few. So we're an incredibly rich institutional and long-lived community here. But I also like to highlight the Red Line. The Red Line, which is also known as the Brain Train, has historically brought its benefits north. And with our positioning here adjacent to South Boston and Dorchester, we have a unique opportunity to promote some of the benefits that Red Line brings in economic development and transit-oriented development to the southern and eastern portions and neighborhoods of the city. So we're very excited about that. Now we can go to the next slide. So for more than 50 years, this site has been a home to impervious surfaces, asphalt, concrete, cars. Basically, it's going to be replaced by 20 acres of public realm, housing, and jobs for Boston residents. And if you look at these images in a counterclockwise fashion, the uppermost image is the parking lot of the Bayside Center, and the lighter color, both there and below it, is actually the footprint of the Expo Center that was demolished many, many decades ago and never replaced. And as we come around to the left, or to the right, I should say, that's the connection over to Day Boulevard that today is occupied by 2 guardhouses. Our intent is to make that a different place as well. And then lastly, the Santander Bank buildings to Morrissey, also concrete, asphalt, and fences. None of this is appropriate to what we imagine Dorchester Bay City to be and can be. So let's go to the next and talk a little bit more about the larger public realm impacts or public-private partnership potential. We have always said large projects have to take on large challenges, and we have no shortage of large challenges. So in a clockwise fashion, this project will tackle with partnerships with the city and state some of the traffic challenges of Kosciuszko Circle on the upper right, coming down to Morrissey Boulevard, which often floods on the lower right, and coming across to the antiquated JFK Red Line stop, built in 1965, and as it is when it was built at that time. And then lastly, coming up to Mount Vernon Street, which is the new sort of front door to a lot of the new components of the UMass Boston campus, we hope to make that a much more user-friendly environment for pedestrians and cyclists coming to the university. Let's go to the next image. So this is our master plan, and it's comprised of these 2 brighter green sections, the upper portion being Bayside, the lower portion being to Morrissey. What you'll notice is a lot of the things that Christina talked about, the Columbia Point Master Plan, have made their way into this. And additionally, we held a charrette 4 years ago with 200 people from all the surrounding civics to get their inputs. And they brought forward many of the same ideas. A central spine that leads from the T to the C, which you see here, connectivity across the Harbor Walk, continuing Dorchester Shores Reservation and bridging over to the New Oakley Park along the water's edge, additional green space and open space, and you'll hear about 1,000 trees and 8 acres of new green space that joins 20 acres of new public realm. So this vision of 21 buildings very much is meant to create those places, but its buildings fit into an open space system rather than an open space system fit around buildings. And that is some of the cornerstones. And you'll notice also the connectivity from Morrissey to Mount Vernon to the sea, that ring road, and then over to that new connector to Day Boulevard. So let's go to the next slide, please. So the Dorchester Bay City has quite a few benefits that we're excited about. You've heard Caitlin and Christina describe this 36 acres and almost 20 acres of public realm. But we didn't get into the details of 40,000 new jobs, 25,000 of those construction jobs, 15,000 permanent jobs. Many of them jobs of the future that can be trained for in partnership with our adjacent public research institution down the road. You heard about community engagement of 500 meetings, all very important to shaping this project. And then the flood protection, we like to say, it protects our neighborhood, our neighbors, and ourselves in that order. And so there are components of on-site and off-site flood protection, and you can see the order of magnitude it will take to raise this site to the sea level mitigating amount that the city has defined, $166 million. And then moving on to the housing dimension of almost 2,000 units, of which 20% is committed to be affordable on site. But we didn't stop there. We wanted to have a robust strategy towards housing that not only empowered affordable rental, but also the benefits that come with affordable home ownership. So we've stood up the MAHA Stash Program Enhancement Program and hoping to bring other developers along, contribute to that, to a very successful program that MAHA has run for many years to create first-time home buyers in our city, and all the benefits of sending kids to college and giving a home down to your family that come with it. And lastly, $53 million to the Neighborhood Housing Trust, an important dimension of spurring development in the surrounding communities and throughout Boston that needs that money to reach affordability levels. Then back to transportation, 3.7 miles of new bike lanes, $41.5 million of off-site transportation improvements, and then we've already talked about Mount Vernon Street, and then $5 million to spark that revitalization of that 50-year-old train station, 60-year-old train station, JFK Red Line. So we are excited also that the proceeds from this project will go to support UMass Boston, the third most diverse university in the country, and very much the catalyst for a lot of people's pathway into closing the racial and generational wealth gap. We can go to the next slide. So I thought we'd show a couple of images of what's there now and what can be there with your assistance tonight. The image looking back towards the city of Boston on the left, and on the right where we've introduced a 3-acre park and a 6,000 square foot public pavilion, maybe the Instagram moment for this site, looking back over Carson Beach, all publicly accessible and inviting to all. Next slide. Here we're looking as you're coming from the T towards UMass Boston to the left, or down Morrissey Boulevard to BC High, currently a very challenging, difficult environment for students, both high school and college students, but with the opportunity to make the cycle track pedestrian-laden public realm with 1,000 trees and an innovation plaza which has no cars in it at all, going down the middle from that taller building on the left to the residential building on the right. Both of those are residential buildings, I'm sorry. Let's go to the next slide. And as we look up Mount Vernon Street from getting out of the train station. On the left is what you see today. On the right is what we hope you'll see, and why we think a lot of people will come here by foot, by train, and by cycle as we enhance it and make it a pleasant trip to the place that you begin to see, rather than a trip to you're not sure where. Let's go, next slide. So a couple of images of that open space system. One of the things we did is made an assessment of what was there now, what was coming at Moakley Park, and how do we enhance that and create a diversity of public places that are available to everybody, ranging from for kids to adults to contemplative places to active places with restaurants. So here's the kids zone, which is right next to the Boston Teachers Union, hopefully new headquarters, and appropriately, and overlooking the Dorchester Shores Reservation across the Esplanade that we're creating to the left. Let's go to the next slide. Equally important is how we activate this Water's Edge for everybody, and how we make it a place where you can come to a free concert, or you can go to a push cart, or you can spend a day on the beach and make your way here for a $3 taco or a $30 dinner. And how does it get activated in different times of the year? You can see on the lower left circle today, it's not very active and not very pleasant, but what you see here is what we imagine could happen in that activation of the public realm. Let's go to the next slide. So we mentioned resiliency, and we mentioned affordability, and we also mentioned economic development, housing, but we're also very committed to the sustainability goals of the city. You'll hear in a minute about how the site is 30 degrees warmer today than it will be after we're done with the construction of Dorchester Bay City. So it's a heat island, and we're trying to eliminate those places and dissipate that effect. Part of the way we do that is by having people come by bike instead of by car. So 4,500 cycles coming to this site on 3.7 miles of new cycle track that connects into the city's existing cycle track. Resiliency, you've heard a bit about that. And then, of course, green living. We'd like to say you can work, live, play green here at DBC, but that takes the form of commitment to LEED certification and energy certifications that are already adopted by the city, but we're going to take those further. Let's go to the next slide. I'm starting to wind up. This is our scary heat island image. The image on the left is Dorchester Bay today. The image on the right is Dorchester Bay planted with 19 acres of public realm, 1,000 trees, and 9 acres of new parkland, and connecting into the Dorchester Shores Reservation. 30 degrees cooler. Next slide, please. So, in summary, over $365 million of investment in public benefits. I don't need to read this for you, but you can see roughly $100 million for transportation, another 70 for flood protection, $114 million for open spaces and public realm improvement, and roughly $81 million for mitigation in jobs and housing linkage commitments. Let's come to the next slide, which is our last slide. You have your choice. Dorchester Bay City on the right, today as the site exists on the left. On the left, 36 acres of flood-prone runoff creating hot, treeless parking, which is home to 2,800 cars. On the right, open, inviting, cooler, greener, resilient, supportive, and empowering master planning at work. So thank you. Appreciate your time tonight.
Okay, thank you. And thanks for everybody's patience as we made our way through that. So as this is a public hearing, we'll hold off on board questions and comments and proceed to testimony from the public. So Secretary Polhemus, do we have anyone who would like to testify?
Yes, we do. Jeff
Excuse
Jorge.
me, I actually was mistaken. I was supposed to introduce the Chancellor of UMass, who was going to follow up as the end of our presentation. So I made one of my many mistakes here, so I apologize. If you could bring in Chancellor Orozco, that would be fantastic, please.
I'm sorry, what is his name?
Chancellor Marcelo Orozco. So you should see it coming up here. And can you see him?
I'm looking.
So I apologize. We should have teed that up sooner.
Teresa, his hand is raised. I believe his last name is Suarez Orozco.
Suarez.
I'm
Sorry, I'm looking.
Chancellor, I apologize. I
Oh,
apologize.
no worries. Thank you.
Yeah.
Should I get started?
Yes, please. We can hear you now.
Thank you.
Well,
Thank
through
you.
before, so welcome.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair, distinguished members of the board, Secretary, Director Jemisin. It's such a pleasure to join you this beautiful evening from our campus here in Columbia Point. Boston businesses know that our demographics in the city of Boston are changing and that a diverse, well-educated employee workforce is what our city needs. As New England's most diverse campus, UMass Boston students are the future of our Commonwealth, the future of our economy. We at UMass Boston embrace our role in educating and prepare them for the future. We applaud the project's vision of equity for residents, including investments in transportation, affordable housing, climate resilience, and green spaces, on top of the employment training opportunities, minority-owned retail establishments, and other public benefits. As I think about the labs and the research and development opportunities, I dream of the internships, the mentorships, the co-ops that my students, our students at UMass Boston would have the opportunity to access, opportunities that students across the river at the other universities take for granted. I see Dorchester Bay City in terms of the research and development and lab opportunities as an equity intervention. UMass Boston, Dorchester Bay City, we congratulate you. It offers a winning vision. It is an investment in our shared future that will extend the reach of our teaching, of our research, and help shape our region's workforce. We applaud this endeavor. Thank you.
Thank you, Chancellor.
Okay, so we'll now move on to the public testimony.
Councillor Flaherty, you can go ahead.
Thank you, Teresa. Can you hear me?
I can, yes.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Director Jemison, Madam Chair, and members of the board. My name is Michael Flaherty, City Councilor at Large, and going on record in support on behalf also of Congressman Stephen Lynch and the local electeds to support the proposal by Dorchester Bay City. This has been a long and exhaustive process, one for me that goes back over 15 years to the Columbia Point Master Plan that I and so many others participated in. So to say that this site and this proposal has been fully vetted is an understatement. Significant affordable housing contribution to our city, 20% IDP, plus the added community benefit in partnership with MAHA, one of our leading affordable housing organizations in Boston. Thousands of jobs will be created, both construction and trades, as well as full and part-time opportunities. We've got much-needed transportation infrastructure upgrades, forward-thinking climate resiliency commitments, and there's been tremendous local participation with a focus on neighborhood amenities and making sure that neighbors, have the opportunity to participate in every facet of this proposal, this project. So making sure that the rest of Dorchester doesn't get walled off and that everyone has an opportunity and invited to participate. So I often say this as an at-large counselor, that Austin's success stories are a result of partnerships. And so far, Dorchester Bay City has been a good and responsive and a loyal partner to Dorchester and to the city, and it's my hope that they'll continue to do so. So it enjoys my full support and the support of Congressman Stephen Lynch and the local elected delegation. Thank you for your time and attention, everyone. I'm available for any questions, but I often also talk about, as we're heading into a down economy and we've got some folks that are putting their projects on pause and or struggling to get financial contributions and funding, this is not one of them. If there's a project that has been fully vetted and should be given the green light to get to the next level, and there'll be more process, there'll be more community engagement for sure, along with their direct abutters, who also, whether it's been UMass, as we just heard from my alma mater at BCI, Dorchester Bay City has been very responsive to their neighbors, their abutters, as well as the local elected. So hopefully that will continue. I expect that it will. And again, this enjoys the support of myself and other electeds. Thank you, Director and Madam Chair and members of the board.
Thank you very much. Councillor Aaron Murphy.
Great, thank you. Thank you, board, and wanted to echo what Councilor Flaherty said. I should have said it last time, but welcome, Raheem. Glad to see you here on the board. And to the Chancellor, I was able to spend some time earlier with him at UMass Boston. But I do want to say, as a Dorchester resident, proud UMass Boston graduate. I was a special ed coordinator there at the Deborah School, a parent of 2 BC High boys, and a BTU member, so spent a lot of time over there at the BTU Hall. Know this area very well, and thank you to Kirk for those pictures. What it does look like now and what it has looked like for decades is unacceptable, right? So this project is welcoming to this community. So I do want to go on record and just echo the community benefits are wonderful, the new jobs and the economic opportunity for the residents, and in the lines with our shared vision in the city about being more inclusive, sustainable, and an economic, vibrant city. So wanted to go on record in support, and I'm here for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Jeff Jorge, you can unmute yourself.
Thank you very much, Chair Rojas and the board and everyone else who's taken time out of their day. I am a homeowner in Dorchester with my family and a teacher, and I am all for development and improving public spaces for the community, but not at the cost of displacement. A commitment to equity really centers the most vulnerable population when planning, and in this case, that is the low-income immigrant, Black, Indigenous, and PLC residents around DBC that are at risk of displacement. BIFDEC has said that given the scale and potential impact of Dorchester Bay City, it needs to have major solutions to promote fair housing proportional to its impact. So the AFFH review, as they said, was voluntary, but they did really commit to, is what they said, has confirmed what we have been saying all along, that residents around DBC are at high risk, and that realistically, they say 70%, they went from 60% to 70%, but across the city, groups citywide have been fighting for 30 to 40%. So what I'm gonna ask for at a bare minimum before supporting this project is that you should please commit to following the fair housing recommendations to set units at a maximum average of 60%, not 70, to make at least 20% of the units 2+ bedrooms across the entire project, to make it affordable for families and to really partner with the Boston Housing Authority to reach low-income residents and families using methods such as the project-based rental assistance units. And one last point, with all the attacks on affirmative action happening across the country, Boston should really set consistent public examples that supports the idea that we must consistently work to repair the harm of past and ongoing racist policies and business practices and real estate practices. Part of that is making sure all development projects commit to fixing the issues raised in AFFH reviews. The BPA must not vote today to approve any part of DBC, BPDA until issues around affordability, family units, and fair housing are addressed. Thank you.
Thank you. Jacqueline Chernobyl, you can unmute yourself.
Hello, my name is Jacqueline Chernobyl. I'm the Vice President of Adult Education and Workforce Development at Catholic Charities of Boston. Thanks so much for having me here today to voice our support for this initiative. There are many aspects of this proposal that are exciting from a workforce development perspective, including the 15,000 new permanent jobs it will create and the nearly $10 million investment in jobs linkage funds that will provide vital training to those hoping to enter or move up in the workforce. The piece I am most excited about, however, is the inclusion of an 8,000 square foot education, training, and innovation center. Creation of the center will have a long-lasting impact on the community and demonstrates a commitment to the prosperity of local residents. Catholic Charities looks forward to being a partner in this important work. Thanks so much for your time and consideration, and I hope you all have a great evening.
Thank you. Kathy Glenn, you can unmute yourself.
Can you hear me okay?
Yep, I can.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Kathy Glynn, and I am a person born and raised in Boston and also a first-generation homeowner. I'm currently living for the past 22 years. I live and own a home in Mattapan. I'm here basically to support the, to support the proposal before you with the caveat, as stated in a September 12th letter from Kirk Sykes at Accordia to MAHA, that further development plans for this project will not be filed with BPDA before January 1st, 2024. I should have mentioned that for the past approximately a little bit more than 3.5 years, I've also been a MAHA member and have been pretty involved in this effort from the beginning. One couple of final small points. I just want to express appreciation to Accordia for their willingness to advance linkage funding 100% at the building permit stage and to increase linkage payments over time as requirements change. And finally, a note of thanks to MAHA for what I consider an incredible leadership position on behalf of community folks to ensure home ownership opportunities, and to Accordia and BPDA for partnering in a process that can be a model for other developments in the future. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Markeisha Moore, you can unmute yourself.
Hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, thank you guys. I'm going to say something different because Jeff said all the things that I had written down to say. I want to say that I've lived in Dorchester my whole life, raised my 3 children. I have not had opportunities that other folks have had in this city, even though I'm searching for them, and I want my kids to have them. I want to just focus on one of the BPDA recommendations, which is to make the AMIs at an average of 60% instead of 70%, which before, this project said that they were going to do. I want to just say that at 70% of AMI, that equals one person making $73,000 a year, or a family of 4 making $104,000 a year. And most of the folks that are in this surrounding area and that will be affected and pushed out by this project are making $44,000 a year. This doesn't even reach 60 $60,000 a year, people making $60,000 a year. So there is no way that this will not displace folks in the area. And I wanted to add that just because it was voluntary to do the AFFH does not mean that you are not obligated to do it. That is a law that we have adopted in the city of Boston. And I'm not going to name names, but I heard some allusion to the fact that poor people don't belong in this project area. I want to say that that is terrible, and this is why we have these issues that we have. Like, we belong in this city. I don't make $74,000 a year, and I have 2 daughters living with me. So I'm a family of 3. This project will affect me. I won't be able to, I'm barely affording to stay here in Boston now. So I want people to be clear that at these AMIs, like this, they have to do better. They have to do better. AFFH is a law, and this project should not be voted through until those things, those suggestions and recommendations that the BPDA recommended are addressed and or fixed. Thank you.
Thank you. Jen Carty, you can unmute yourself.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Board, for having me here tonight. My name is Jen Carty, and I live in Fields Corner, and I'm on the steering committee of Dorchester Growing Together, a neighborhood-wide civic organization that advocates for building more homes in all neighborhoods at all price points. We're a member organization of the statewide Abundant Housing Mass organization. At the moment, we have about 125 local members. In the context of an incredible regional shortage of housing caused by exclusionary zoning artificially limiting what has been able to be built here for decades, Dorchester-based city's approval to create 1,957 new homes, 20% of which will be income restricted on Columbia Point right next to the T, is a fabulous proposal I urge you to support. The developers are also contributing the MAHA contribution towards the First Generation Homebuyer Program, which does great work statewide, helping people build long-term equity. Finally, the creation of about 9 acres of public green space in an area currently mostly covered by asphalt with large public pavilion event space, and the installation of resilient flood protection DCR wanted are significant improvements in their own right. Many of our members spoke or filed comments and supported this project over the years-long community process that got us here. I'm here tonight to additionally convey the unanimous support of Dorchester Growing Together Steering Committee. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Mina Perez, you can unmute yourself.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Madam Chair, members of the board, Minor Perez representing the Carpenters Union. I'd first like to say thanks to the BPDA for conducting a thorough review and the great work they did all along. I also like to thank the proponent for a great vision and a great project that makes sense for this location. I finally want to thank the Office of Mayor Michelle Wu for allowing the community to be part of the process. Madam Chair, members of the board, in behalf of all my brothers and sisters that live throughout the city of Boston, hundreds of them, in particular the city of Dorchester, I want to go in strong support of this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Minor. Mary Jo Connolly, you can unmute yourself. Mary Jo.
Muting myself right now. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, the municipal hosts, and the rest of the esteemed board members, thank you for the opportunity to speak. I am speaking tonight in opposition to the approval of this project in its present form, based on the fact that the city's own agency and interagency group, the Boston Interagency Fair Housing Development Committee, or as people have been referring to it, BPDA, found what we all have been saying for a very long time, that the project is located in an area of high displacement risk. We saw the parking lots. I'm very familiar. I live in Columbia Savin Hill. I work at UMass Boston. I walk past the lots on a daily, not daily, maybe 4 or 5 times a week. But I just wanted to give you a little bit more of the detail about why BPTEC is reporting that they found this high displacement risk. They are saying that it's because there's significantly more renter households in the areas surrounding the proposed project than in the city as a whole, with over 99% of the catchment area as defined in several sets of city data consisting of renter households. There's a moderately higher percentage of both rent-burdened and extremely rent-burdened households than in the city. Household incomes are lower than the citywide average, with nearly 79% of households having an income of $75,000 or less, compared to the citywide average of only 56% having those low incomes. Finally, another protected class, there's a high prevalence of households identifying as Hispanic, Latino, Asian, Native Hawaiian, or other Pacific Islander or two races in the catchment area, so that there is an elevated displacement risk for members of those protected class. It's on this basis that the city has put forth a policy and a process for assessing risk of displacement, and as a number of people have already mentioned, has made recommendations on how to address this, and has said that they want to see the current project adopting those recommendations. I am asking you, please do not approve a set of metrics for affordable housing tonight that would preclude at least two of the major recommendations, the one on AMI and the one on household size. So that is my request of you to take this very seriously, both for this project, which is huge for me and my neighbors, many of whom are being pushed out by high rents already, but also for the city, all of the projects that come forward in the future that will maybe get to choose to listen to or not bother with the AFFH recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you. Get a glass of water. Liz McGuire, you can unmute yourself.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Liz McGuire. I live in Alston, Brighton. I'm a UMass Boston graduate. I have family nearby in Dorchester and South Boston. And I've also been organizing with MAHA for more affordable ownership opportunities across the city since I took their homebuyer class in 2021. The funding for home ownership opportunities is important to me because I've been renting in Brighton for about 30 years and see and feel the stark differences between long-term Boston renters and peers that were able to somehow purchase condos or houses and build equity, gain stable housing with fixed expenses, and pass for retirement, et cetera. I'm hoping that there are more ownership opportunities in Boston so more of us can benefit with stable, affordable housing in Boston so we can stay near our families, friends, and work in Boston. And I'm grateful to MAHA team, Cordia and BPDA for reaching, I hope, a precedent-setting linkage agreement that provides funding for affordable housing and job training. And I also support these calls for decreasing the AMI percentage for rental units. I feel like with the displacement crisis we're experiencing, AMI is rising so rapidly that 60% today, tomorrow will be 80%, what was 80% yesterday. It's with the people with lower income moving out. Thank you very much for letting me speak.
Thank you. Bruce Berman, you can unmute yourself.
Thank you. My name is Bruce Berman. As some of you may know, I served as Director of Strategy and Communications at Save the Harbor, Save the Bay for more than 30 years. And I'm currently lead consultant to the legislature's Metropolitan Beaches Commission. I'm here tonight because I've spent the past 35 years working to restore, protect, and share Boston Harbor, the waterfront, and the region's public beaches with all Bostonians and all the region's residents who invested more than $5 billion in the Boston Harbor cleanup and made the beaches of South Boston the cleanest, not just the largest, but the cleanest and most popular urban beaches in the nation. Those before me have really covered virtually everything that I think is important and underscores why I'm here tonight in strong support of Accordia Partners' proposed project. I believe it's well aligned with the cities and the mayors and the BPDA and my personal goals of increasing equity, inclusion, diversity, affordability, and climate resiliency on Boston's spectacular harbor and our waterfront. I think everyone knows that it will transform 2,500 parking spaces into a resilient transit-focused development. I want to just call out that as part of the updated proposal, the proposal in front of you, the proponents will invest more than $35 million in off-site transportation infrastructure, and they will also provide up to $235 million to support UMass Boston and its education mission. My wife is a graduate. It's critical to our future, and it's a wonderful thing for them to do. I believe that Dorchester Bay City will truly connect the city to the sea. It'll create a more than 3-acre park along the harbor that will strengthen the physical and the programmatic connections to DCR's Carson Beach Reservation and the city of Boston's Joe Moakley Park. This is particularly important to me, and I believe to Save the Harbor, Save the Bay, and the community partners in South Boston and Dorchester, and to the thousands of young people from across the city who take part in their free youth and beach programs every year. Though no plan satisfies everyone, the planning process for this...
I'm sorry, Bruce. Your time is up.
Terrific. Thank you very much. Thanks, Deb.
Thanks for your time. Donna Brown, you can unmute yourself.
Hi, I'm the Executive Director of South Boston Neighborhood Development Corporation, and I want to speak in favor of this project. The developers have spent a tremendous amount of time engaging not only with the Dorchester neighborhood, but also with South Boston residents, nonprofits, and affordable housing developers like us. And I think their project is an amazing example of what development should be in this city, and will be an asset to both South Boston and to Dorchester and to the rest of Boston, given the amount of open space they're creating, the affordable housing commitment, and this transformative development on these parking lots. And thank you for this opportunity to speak.
Thank you. Linda Zalbaki, sorry.
That's okay. Everybody pronounces it. That's okay. Everybody pronounces it wrong. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Okay. Hi, I'm Linda Zablocki, lifelong resident of Vander Square, and I'd like to absolutely bounce on Donna Brown's comments. But my own, right now, for a long time, I've lived here a long time, we've been looking at a horrendous place down there, non-welcoming, doesn't tell you to come in, doesn't say, hey, come sit down and relax, or buy something, or live here, or come work, play. It's absolutely forbidding you to come in. And the development right now, as it stands, has open arms welcoming everybody. And it will absolutely bring the shore and the sea to the people the way it should be. This shore should be enjoyed by everybody, and it will be. And it will be an absolute benefit to South Boston and Dorchester, but not just that, the city of Boston. This is something that should be developed, that should go through, and should absolutely be passed. And Accordia absolutely has been one of the best developers I have worked with and I have seen, and we don't get many of them that do this, but they have worked with the communities all around. They have touched, they're like an octopus. Their tentacles have been out everywhere and touched everything. And I think that, in my opinion, this would be such a benefit to the entire city. It really needs to get moving, and it needs to be there. It has open arms to everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Martin Simon, you can unmute yourself. Martin?
Hi, can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Hello, Madam Chair, board members of the BPDA. My name is Martin Simon. I'm a lifelong resident of Rosendale.
Martin, I can't hear you right now.
Oh, can you guys hear me?
Yep, I can hear you now.
My apologies, I'm having issues with my mic. I'll speed up. I'm a lifelong resident of Rosendale, also a MAHA graduate. I am also a UMass Boston graduate, so I am very familiar with long walks to that hot, treeless parking lot, and very familiar with the existing site. I remember Bayside Expo Center when they turned it into like a spooky world for a year, and UMass Boston made a bunch of promises, but I'm here voicing my support for Dorchester Bay City. I think this development will be 100% transformational. I am a tax accountant and have the opportunity to work with Boston residents of incomes across the spectrum, as little as $50,000, as high as $450,000, and home ownership needs to be at the forefront of our community. So I'm here to really advocate for the stash funds and for the linkage funds, and I really appreciate Kirk and the Accordia team for being understanding, and once again, thank you all for your time.
Thank you. Grace Regan, you can unmute yourself.
Good evening, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Hi, Madam Chair and members of the board. My name is Grace Carter Regan, and I serve as president of Boston College High School. We're a Jesuit Catholic school serving boys from grades 7 to 12 on Morrissey Boulevard in Dorchester. I also serve as the convener of Point Partners, which is a volunteer group of educational and community service institutions, businesses, and developers on Columbia Point. Accordia and UMass are part of our group. And this is a group of leaders and CEOs working strategically and collaboratively to support the growth on Columbia Point. And one of our collective goals is to catalyze the major infrastructure that the Point and the corridor desperately needs. BC High is supportive of Accordia Partners in the Dorchester Bay City program. The process has been really deliberate and inclusive. They've been thoughtful about the development of the entire area. This project will be important for everyone on Columbia Point and the corridor. The Dorchester Bay City and Accordia team have been great partners every step of the way, and they continue to address challenges and offer full transparency. So thank you for allowing me to offer our support on behalf of BC High. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Vicki DiLorenzo, you can unmute yourself.
Hi, thank you, Madam Chair and board members. My name is Vicki. I'm here representing Right to the City Boston, which is a citywide alliance of grassroots organizations fighting the displacement crisis, fighting for the right of working class communities, and communities of color to remain in the city. As others have stated, we are deeply concerned that this vote is proceeding before the city's own fair housing concerns have been addressed. And voting to advance this project before those issues are addressed is wrong, not only because of the deficiencies themselves, which others have discussed, but also because it makes the public question whether the city is really sincere about its own stated goals of advancing equity and affordability in the development review process. The current income limits for the affordable units are still too high. They keep this housing out of reach for many nearby residents. There's currently no real plan to create housing on site for lower income residents and families making between 30 and 50% AMI, which is the actual income level of many residents in the area. A willingness to explore something without a commitment is not a plan. And finally, just in response to some of the comments that have been made, just because there's a housing shortage does not mean that we should abandon our commitments to affordability and equity. Those things don't just happen by themselves. And it's also not true that our choice is between the project in its current form and the vacant lot that currently exists. That is a false choice. That is not the actual choice in front of us. So again, we urge the BPDA board to not approve the advancement of this project until the city's own fair housing assessment has been addressed. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Anna, you can unmute yourself.
Thank you. My name is Anna Yu, and I'm the Executive Director of Artists for Humanity. I want to thank the BPDA board for this opportunity for public comment, and I wanted to express my support for the Dorchester Bay City development, which incorporates public art, job opportunities, diverse workforce training and development, and environmental sustainability in their plans. AFH provides mentorship and educational resources to support artistic, personal, and professional growth for 14 to 18-year-olds. We also employ over 70 Dorchester teen participants, where 39% of our teen artists are from Dorchester. With this development, we hope to work with Accordia partners to elevate and feature diverse young voices from Dorchester in the public realm. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you. Simone Crawford, you can unmute yourself.
Good evening. Thank you to Madam Chair, members of the board, Chief Jemison, and the BPDA staff, and Dorchester residents and friends. On behalf of the board of MAHA staff and members of the Massachusetts Affordable Housing Alliance Homebuyers Union members, we express our full support for the Dorchester Bay City project proposed by Accordia Partners. And I know this comes as no surprise. We are located in the Dorchester area and serve over 3,000 community members each year through our homeownership classes and organizing efforts. Our graduates and members desperately need secure housing, and we applaud Accordia for creating a blueprint for affordable homeownership investments that we hope other developments will follow. The affordable homeownership benefits that originated from the collaboration between MAHA's Homebuyers Union members and Accordia Partner will provide access to down payment assistance for first-generation homebuyers in Dorchester and other Boston neighborhoods through the $10 million commitment to the STASH program. These funds are integral for homeownership opportunities throughout the city, and this program is a first-in-the-nation program serving those whose parents did not own a home. Secondly, including future linkage rates for the majority of this project will provide what we are estimated to be over $83 million in affordable housing revenue for Dorchester and other neighborhoods in the city. We need more affordable homeownership units, and this fund will be instrumental in creating some of these much-needed homes. Mayor Wu and the BPDA have adopted a diversity, equity, and inclusion policy last year, and homeownership is one of the greatest equity and stability creators. So it must be right in the middle of this DEI policy. MAHA is proud and very happy to partner with Accordia Partners and other neighborhood nonprofit organizations to deliver these benefits to the community. This evening, we respectfully ask the Board of Directors of the Boston Planning and Development Agencies to move the Dorchester Bay City project forward, and we look forward to remaining engagement throughout the upcoming discussions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Kang Niem, you can unmute yourself, and I apologize for mispronouncing your name.
Oh, it's fine. You got it really close. So,
thank you.
Good evening to the board, Madam Secretary, and everyone in this Zoom call. My name is Kwang Niem, an upcoming graduate student and a Dorchester resident who lives right off Dot Ave between Seven Hill and Fields Corner. And this summer I interned at Accordia Partners with a team through a program called CRESS, an internship program with top firms in the industry that is made up of people of color and women. This program was started by Kirk Sykes of the development team. And these are the things that I'm impressed with and the things I believe the community deeply needs. Since at the start of the vote, I haven't seen any Vietnamese people except for the one that translates. First of all, the open space. We need a lot of open space in Dorchester as the area is really dense and there's no place for children and families to hang out. We need seawalls and flood-resilient buildings, which was proposed. If we don't do anything in the upcoming years, water will rise, and that will become a problem for this area. It will create new jobs, businesses, affordable retail space, and affordable housing. A lot of businesses alongside Dorchester Avenue are Vietnamese restaurants, nail salons, and I think it really creates more space for the community to rent. Brings in nearly 2,000 units of affordable housing, and it's a bike and walk-friendly project. I take the T every day, and I can see that the JFK station is in much needed help and support as the train station is fastly breaking down. And the improvement of K Circle as well, which is also needed as there is a lot of traffic every day. And it's one of the projects out there that work closely with the community. And I speak for this development and it's in strong support as an active member of the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Colleen Fonseca, can you unmute yourself?
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the BPDA board for your time and consideration tonight. My name is Colleen Fonseca, and I proudly serve as the Executive Director for the Builders of Color Coalition. I'm pleased tonight to support the development put forth by Accordia Partners for the Dorchester Bay City project. As the executive director for BCC, I'm charged with advancing diversity in the commercial real estate industry on behalf of our network of 650 real estate professionals of color across Greater Boston. In my short time with BCC, I've learned that nationally, less than 1% of development companies are owned and operated by people of color. The Dorchester Bay City project really represents a development that drives diversity and inclusion across all levels of the project, which we've heard a good amount about tonight. Accordia Partners, the development agent, is no newcomer to DE&I work and really has devised a plan that integrates DE&I horizontally and vertically, possibly making this project the largest African-American-led project in the city's history. With the approval of this project alone, beyond having a diverse project team and leadership, $18 million would be invested to economic development related programs that would foster historically high levels of involvement from minorities, women, and local residents in terms of project funding, entrepreneurship, employment opportunities, and vocational education. This project, if approved, is undoubtedly going to shift the culture in the commercial real estate industry and create a new framework for what equitable development can look like. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Donald Rankins, you can unmute yourself.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
First, I want to give honor to God, who's first in my life. Madam Chair, the BPDA board members, Accordia's board members, and of course, our very own MAHA members. Thank you for this opportunity. I am currently a Boston resident. I'm Boston born and bred, and I'm hoping that I'm Boston dead when this is all over. I love this fine city. I'm very thankful for the commitment to everyone that is on this call and everyone that has participated in contributing to affordable housing. I am a current graduate of the MAHA First-Time Home Buyers. I'm in pursuit to own some property in Boston so I don't have to leave Boston. Thank you all so very much for being on this call. I love what you're doing. I'm in total support to any agency, any establishment, any organization that would keep the door open so those of us that are Boston born can continue to keep our hopes and dreams alive. Thank you so very much for your patience.
Thank you very much. Summer Heyman, you can unmute yourself.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
Hi, okay. Hello, and thank you for the opportunity to speak on this matter. As a current environmental science and community development student at UMass Boston, I speak in conjunction with Chancellor Marcelo Suarez in support when I am saying I support the DBC project. Having studied the history of Columbia Point, researching the present needs of Columbia Point, and wanting to be able to be a part of its future and seeing through its resiliency and transformative potential, I am fully in support of all of the impressive efforts and due diligence that Accordia and its colleagues have put into this project, specifically to its efforts towards resiliency, commitments to combating the impacts of sea level rise, the proposed improvements of the T, which it is truly in need of, and the commitment to creating generational wealth through the opportunity towards home ownership. Thank you again to the BBTA board and all who are listening.
Thank you. Barbara Rice, you can unmute yourself.
Hi. Hi.
Go.
I live in Rosendale, and I'm a proud MAHA home buyer. I was able to buy my home with MAHA's program many years ago. So I want to add that in addition to building equity and family stability, homeownership is a great retirement program. So I support the work that MAHA and Accordia have done over these few years to come to an agreement on more investment in homeownership opportunities, the STASH program, and paying linkage at the rates that when the buildings are built. I hope that they'll be good to their agreement, that they will wait till after January 2024 to put forward the plans for more buildings except for the first two, and the linkage rate at that time will be a little over $23. And in January 2025, the linkage rate will go up to a little over $30 for labs, and I hope that they will respect that. But I do want to speak in support of the program and the work that they have done these last several years, slogging through agreements with MAHA and their support for homeownership opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Erica Schwartz, you can unmute yourself.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
My name is Erica Schwartz. I live at 11 Lindsay Street here at Fields Corner. I am really disappointed that the BPDA would consider voting on this when, as others have pointed out, the city's own Fair Housing Committee has identified such serious gaps in the housing portion, and it doesn't seem like those things have been even considered, let alone incorporated. I think that, you know, a lot of these things, the fact that the proposals that the Fair Housing Committee has made are really modest. 20% affordability in a development of this scale and with lab space that takes in such an insane amount of rent seems really modest. 10% of the units being family sized also is incredibly modest, which I think is what is being proposed now. And it's just a sign that this is not actually an inclusive development. The households currently in Dorchester, there's way more than 10% that would need larger units. And I work in affordable housing, and so I know that even at 60% AMI, you'd still be blocking just a huge, huge percentage of households from being able to access this development. So at 70%, you're letting even fewer households in. And it's nice to say that you want to be inclusive, but this is not an inclusive development. Looks like an amazing development, like who wouldn't want to live there? Open space, bike paths, the density on the water, but the reality is that the people in Dorchester will not be, you know, my neighbors will not be able to access that, and it will have an impact that I think a ripple effect that could cause other housing costs to increase. So I'm asking that the vote is not taken until these recommendations are considered. And finally, I just want to say, it just bothered me so much, so I have to say it. The phrase brain drain to refer to the red line, I've never heard that. I think it's pretty offensive. I think it seems to indicate that the goal here is really to create a development that capitalizes on having access to the red line so that you can cater to people who will be working in Kendall Square or working in the tech or biotech industry. I worked in Kendall Square for 3 years, never heard that phrase. And it's an exclusive phrase, and it seems to indicate that this is not actually a development with a lot of inclusivity as a goal. So I really hope that the vote is not taken and that the Fair Housing Committee's recommendations, which are so modest, are seriously considered and just fully incorporated. Thank you.
Thank you. Andrea, you can unmute yourself.
And good evening, everyone. Thank you so much. Good evening. My name is Andrea Da Costa. I'm a resident of Dorchester, a homeowner since 2016, and a graduate of MAHA and a proud volunteer also. Homeownership is very important to me and my family. It provides stabilization, generational wealth. It is an awesome feeling knowing I have achieved my dream. I will continue to advocate for others, families, and people of color to have the dream that I have achieved also. Thank you so much to all the staff at MAHA, Accordia, and the BPDA for reaching an excellent linkage agreement for affordable housing and job training. Thank you all so very much.
Thank you. Maria Lyons, you can unmute yourself.
Hi, thank you for letting me speak. I am opposed to this project. I hope you slow this down. It is irresponsible to forward this project with no comprehensive plan for the entire Dorchester waterfront. This isn't the only project. There are many other projects along Columbia, Savin Hill, Neponset, and all the way to Port Norfolk. You're creating a wall along the shore, shutting out the rest of Dorchester, changing the environment, and putting people in harm's way because all of these areas are flood zones. As far as this particular project, You say it's been thoroughly vetted. I disagree. One issue is flooding. There is not enough pushback of the buildings like they do in New York City. The city should be taking a look at what they're doing in New York City. The green space that's there, most of it is DCR land. They're not adding that much along the waterfront of their own property. And some of that is going to be under sea level rise in the future. So they need to move back farther. Filling a parking lot with mostly buildings doesn't make it climate resilient, in my book, I'm sorry. Where will the deflected water go from the flooding? Nobody's answered that question yet. As far as public access and amenities, inside we need more, library, Wi-Fi, cafes and things. Nobody's really talking about what's going in there. Especially along the waterfront, you have that trail down to the waterfront. Yeah, that's nice. But where does it end up? With a large bean-shaped building that's blocking the public space to the waterfront. It is a detriment to the public green space and should be removed. The height and density is adding too much shading on the trees that you're talking about planting, as well as the Harbor Point area in the waterfront, making it cold and dark. The biggest thing is there's no plan for the Morrissey Boulevard or the train station. Those things should be done first before this project is ever pushed forward. Otherwise, like I said, it's completely irresponsible. I travel down this road every day. I know how many people are crossing the streets. You add 20,000 people going back and forth every day, I don't understand how they're going to get across. This needs much better planning. Thank you.
Thank you. Anissa D'Amberville, you can unmute yourself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Anissa D'Amberville, and I am a lifer, lifetime resident of Dorchester, currently raising my 2 children here. I am a MAHA class graduate and a future STASH program participant. I'm looking forward to becoming a first-generation home buyer in the next few years. It's really important to me to break cycles for my children and to provide them with space for them to grow their dreams. And so with that, I really wanted to say thank you to MAHA and its members, Accordia, and the BPDA for accomplishing what's a groundbreaking linkage agreement for affordable housing and job training. And I think these are the kinds of partnerships that set precedents on what creating community and building community can actually look like in our city. Thank you.
Thank you. Patricia Dunn, you can unmute yourself.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, good evening, everyone. My name is Patricia Dunn, and I was born and raised in Boston, Massachusetts. And I grew up in the Dorchester neighborhood. I've been a member of MAHA for about 2 or 3 years. Someday I want to buy a home in Boston because home ownership is important to me since my mom was unable to buy one due to not having enough money. And today I still have relatives in Boston that don't own a home. My goal is to own a home so that I can pass the home down to my children and gain the benefits of owning a home. So thank you, MAHA, Accordia, and BPDA for giving me the opportunity to speak at this meeting and for reaching a groundbreaking linkage for affordable housing and job training. Thank you.
Thank you. Cortina Van, you can unmute yourself.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, Chief Jemison, Madam Secretary, and everyone that is on this call. My name is Cortina Van. I was born and raised here in Boston. I live in Dorchester. I am a homeowner, a Mass Affordable Housing Alliance graduate, and a staff member, and a CAC member. Homeownership is extremely important to me and my family because it has provided security of having shelter, stability, and safety for our ill loved one. If it wasn't for MAHA's education and advocacy for the One Mortgage program, I wouldn't have been able to purchase my home. My charge is to pay it forward to help others who desire to own to have access to affordable, sustainable home ownership. I want to thank our MAHA members, my neighbors, Accordia and BPDA for reaching an innovative linkage agreement for affordable housing and job training. I support the project. I am excited by what this project can mean in helping the community move towards helping linkage create more affordable homes for working class families and individuals to buy and thrive here in the city of Boston. 83 million of linkage will be essential. I also know that what's an essential tool is MAHA's Stash Savings Towards Affordable Sustainable Homeownership Program. It helps families and individuals accomplish access to affordable homeownership. We want to make sure we help as many people remain in Boston as we can. There are a lot of important quality of life issues that will be touched in this process of this development. And I hope that we all will continue to work together for the common good of our entire community. So I thank you very much for the opportunity to speak this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Danielle Summer-Quieta, you can unmute yourself.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, thank you. Good evening to all, and I want to thank the members of the board for listening and considering the testimony of the community as we work together to build a better Boston. My name is Danielle Summer-Quieta, and I'm an AFFH consultant for the Boston Tenant Coalition. And I want to call attention to the fact that approval for this project tonight is a violation of the affirmatively furthering fair housing laws. The BPDA has yet to approve the AFFH assessment for this project, stating that there are several outstanding issues with regard to housing, to fair housing rather, and a high risk of displacement with this project and what that will represent. This is a necessary approval given the fact that the PDA application for the project was submitted in December of 2022, well after AFFH went into effect. And I'll also note that even if you understand that the developer is doing this voluntarily, they have not actually fulfilled that this portion that they're saying that they are doing voluntarily. You are still in violation. I would like to highlight that Section 80C-3 states that the PDA master plan has to enumerate an ongoing commitment relative to the assessment component, and they shall need to include that cooperation agreement pursuant to Article 80A-5. That states the cooperation agreement shall include the AFFH assessment component and all provisions requiring the proponent to comply with fair housing laws and the affirmatively furthering fair housing. And finally, Section 80C-4 states that approval cannot be given to a master plan unless it complies with, facilitates, and advances the City of Boston's obligations, responsibilities, goals, and programs regarding affirmatively furthering fair housing, with particular regard to concerns identified in an analysis of impediments, AFFH assessment component, and with regard to the impacts that may trigger displacement. And that simply cannot vote to approve it. Thank you.
Larry Mays, you can unmute yourself.
Hi, good evening. I want to say good evening also to the board and leadership of the BRA as well as the BPDA. My name is Larry Mays. I'm along with my colleague Jacqueline Snowball, we are in support of this project. The Boston Opportunity Agenda has written several significant reports about the importance of good child care for the community's economic, educational, social, and health benefits. In a report just released in May, it's estimated that there's a 81% shortage of child care in Dorchester for children between the ages of 2 and under. That's 81% for children between the ages of 2 and under. This project looks to invest millions of dollars in good, accessible child care within a space. In addition, there are 9 acres of green and open spaces smartly connecting Dorchester Shores Reservation, Carlson Beach, and Mobley Park. The humanitarian organization UNICEF and others have written about extensively about the connection between green space and urban spaces and children in those spaces. Higher birth rates, more activity, improved cognitive development, reduced stress on parents, stronger neighborhood cohesion, lastly, increased mental health and well-being. As Amy Leary, the Executive Director for Strategies for Children, has said, considering how much we have invested in long-term impact of quality education, it's an investment we need to do more of for the Commonwealth's future, we can't afford to ignore. So yes, we support this project. We think the connection between children and green space is brilliant and well done. Thank you.
Thank you. Kathy Brown, you can unmute yourself.
Good evening. Thank you so much. So my name is Kathy Brown, and I work with the Boston Tenant Coalition. And we worked with City Council and the City of Boston to establish the affirmatively furthering fair housing zoning amendment, which is historical. And it's also part of the city's larger AFH plan that the city adopted in 2022. And this new tool, the AFH zoning amendment, is a really exciting tool to help create more equitable development in Boston, and it's the first in the country. And for that reason, we are really concerned that it is not being followed. And it's setting a bad precedent in terms of thinking about other development that may get approved that is not affirmatively furthering fair housing. And the city's BPDA, the Interagency Fair Housing Development Committee, did not sign off on this development, as of this late spring, citing many critical fair housing issues that people have identified, such as needing more family units, critical in the city of Boston, also deeper affordability. BPDA asked for 60% average AMI, collaboration with the Boston Housing Authority around getting more Section 8 and other project-based subsidies units there, and also being very clear on the marketing and fair housing. So just really, really encourage you to please follow the AFH before you approve this. Thank you.
Thank you. Sarah Horsley, you can unmute yourself.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Great. So my name is Sarah Horsley. I'm a Boston resident and an associate lecturer at UMass Boston. I'm a member of the UMass Boston Coalition Against Gentrification, which includes faculty, staff, and students. So UMass is, the community is not a monolith. Not everyone in our university supports the project as it is right now. As several people have pointed out, Accordia is required by law to follow the city's affirmatively furthering fair housing policy, which Kathy just laid out. And so today I call on the board, the BPDA board, to delay your vote on this proposal until Accordia addresses the outstanding issues in the BIFTIC's AFFH assessment review. Specifically, Accordia must set affordable units to an average of 60% area median income with a range of incomes. The BIFTIC emphasized in their report, quote, the area surrounding the proposed project site is experiencing higher than average rent burdens and extreme rent burdens and has fewer income restricted units than the citywide averages. Given the size, scope, and impact of this project on the community, offering a range of AMIs is necessary. Accordia must also make at least 20% of the units across the project 2-bedroom or more units to meet the needs of families, and also make commitments to units for people with disabilities. And finally, people have also mentioned earlier the importance of partnering with the Boston Housing Authority to reach lower income residents. So again, I urge the board to delay your vote until the proponent meets the requirements by law of the AFFH policy. And this is crucial not only for this project, and the Columbia Point area, but for the precedent it sets for the city's commitment to affirmatively furthering fair housing and to housing justice citywide. Thank you.
Thank you. Charles Mackinson, you can unmute yourself. Or Mackinson Charles, I apologize if I got it backwards.
That's okay. Can you hear me well?
Yes, I can.
Good evening. Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the board. My name is Mackenzie Charles. You call me Mac for short, the Chief of Membership at the Black Economic Council of Massachusetts. And on behalf of BECMA, I'm here to express our support for the Dorchester Bay City project. At BECMA, we are committed to promoting economic development and empowerment for Black-owned businesses and communities throughout Massachusetts. Accordia Partners, the largest certified minority business enterprise development company in Boston, has created a strategy for Dorchester Bay City project that is intended to ensure participation by minorities and women in project investment, businesses, jobs, and workforce training opportunities at the project. We are especially pleased to see that the developers of the project have committed to hiring a diverse workforce, which is another important aspect of creating economic opportunity for all. And we appreciate the efforts that the Dorchester Bay City team has engaged with the community to ensure that the project is developed in a manner that is responsive to the needs and concerns of local residents. And we believe that their commitment to community engagement, as well as their focus on equity and inclusion, will ensure that the project is successful and has a positive impact in Dorchester and surrounding areas for years to come. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Becky Pierce, you can unmute yourself.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, thank you very much for this opportunity to address the board. My name is Becky Pierce, and I live on Brent Street in Codman Square, neighborhood of Dorchester. And I've lived in this neighborhood for 51 years. I've watched rents and house prices here go up and up and up over the last 15 years or so, to a point where I could no way afford to live here if my family hadn't been able to buy a house here 30 years ago at a price 1/10 of its assessed value now. And I've seen so many of my neighbors be just forced out because they can no longer afford the rents. And I'm not opposed to Maha's push and this project's support of home ownership. I think that's great, but the 68% of people in Dorchester are renters, and they're the ones that are being forced out. I'm a member of Dorchester Not for Sale, and I'm here to oppose this project, or at least urge you not to vote to approve it in its current form, because it contains no affordable housing units for people who live here now in Dorchester, of whom the big majority is Black, brown, immigrant, and or low income, and having to rent because they can't afford to buy a house, even with the help of Maha, which is wonderful for those families that can help. It's a lie to say that 70% AMI units are affordable in this neighborhood. The $66,000 median household income in Dorchester comes in at between 40 and 60% of AMI for 3- and 4-person families. And many BIPOC families in Dorchester are well below the median and need something at 30 or 35 or 40% of AMI to be able to not be homeless or be forced out to move far away from their communities, their jobs, their families, and so forth. I just don't understand how the BPDA can even be considering voting to approve DPC right now in its current form after Accordia raised the income restricted units from 60% to 70% of AMI from their original proposal. And as lots of other speakers have already raised, their proposal has not met the fair housing affordability and racial equity requirements of the zoning law. So my question for you is...
I'm sorry, ma'am, you're over time.
Okay, sorry.
That's okay, thank you. Mary Moore, you can unmute yourself.
Hello, I'm a resident of Andrews Square, South Boston, and a member of the CAC for this project, and I fully support this project. The process that has brought the project to this point tonight has been a thoughtful process and an intentional process. I particularly appreciate that the development team has kept in mind the connection this project will have to Moakley Park, Carson Beach, so many other places, including my own community of Andrews Square. I do look forward to hearing more about improvements to K Circle as this project moves forward. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Saeed Coates, you can unmute yourself.
Good evening. My name is Saeed Coates. I'm the president and portfolio manager at the Genesis Property Group. I'm a Boston-based real estate investor, commercial real estate investor. And I also serve as the vice president for the board for Builders of Color Coalition. Builders of Color Coalition is Boston's preeminent institution focused on attacking the wealth gap by increasing the number of minorities in commercial real estate. I believe our executive director spoke already. She pointed out that 1% of commercial real estate professionals are of color. This project, I think, represents a perfect example of a platform that we can use to attack the wealth gap. I fully support the Dorchester Bay City project. I've watched it and its evolution over the years as a coordinator responded to various stakeholders and their feedback. Some of these modifications, I believe, included additional green space, nearly $18 million in contributions to job training. I think 10 million of that, 18 million is contribution to the Neighborhood Jobs Trust, and another 8 million in a voluntary community benefits fund. They've also increased the affordable home ownership opportunities that the project offers. I've observed them lower building heights, entirely eliminate buildings from the master plan. And so what I've noticed is a keen ear to stakeholders and looking to change and evolve commercial real estate development in Boston. What I most anticipate from this project, again, is attacking the wealth gap. I think that Boston has a less than flattering income disparity. And so I believe that the leaders of this project have a different approach to development. I believe that it's not going to be a status quo development, and I look forward to the jobs that it will provide to people that look like me, people of color. Thank you.
Thank you. Minnie McMahon, you can unmute yourself.
Hello, good evening. I'm Minnie McMahon. I live on Harborview Street, which is just across the expressway, just across the tracks from Dorchester Bay City. And I'd like to say, while this plan may be compelling for some, what it proposes skates over the reality of what is actually affordable to local residents. And I fear that, maybe people roll their eyes or get tired when they hear another person advocating for affordable housing. Affordable housing is housing that can actually be afforded by people, right? It's housing that people can pay for so that they can live. And an earlier point about this being sort of a false choice between Dorchester Bay City as it's proposed or, the lot as it is now. I don't want that to be lost. I think the question is, how do we make whatever happens at Dorchester Bay City a beacon for development without displacement, and a beacon for developing an economically and racially equitable Boston. So I do join others on this call who are asking that the BPDA not vote to approve any part of this project until those issues around affordability, units to accommodate families, the fair housing issues, until those are addressed. And I do want to invoke again the BPDA, who has indicated that because Dorchester Bay City would be so large and because of the neighborhood displacement risk, the project proponents need to have major solutions to promote fair housing that are proportional to its impact. And furthermore, in BPDA's own words, and affirmatively furthering fair housing assessment is marked as complete when the BPDA has concluded its review and is able to make a recommendation regarding AFFH components of a proposed project. Since there are several outstanding issues which the BPDA believes must be addressed in order for it to make a recommendation, the group has determined that the assessment is not yet complete. I therefore qualify or say that I don't think the board can justify a vote tonight. And I ask, at what point does affirmatively furthering fair housing get the attention that it urgently needs? Thank you.
Thank you. Sharon Cho, you can unmute yourself. Sharon Cho.
Hi, I'm sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Sorry about that. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Sharon. I'm a resident of Dorchester, and I'm a renter here. And I'm here today to oppose the project as it is. And I want to echo what many residents have expressed prior, and express my disappointment that this project is being considered for a vote that, given that it has not met the fair housing requirements identified by the BPDA, the Fair Housing Committee, which is a committee that the BPDA also serves on. And I'm here today. I don't represent an institution that's going to be benefiting hundreds of millions of dollars from this project. I don't represent an organization that's going to benefit from this project. I'm here representing and standing alongside, my fellow working class Dorchester residents who are going to be at risk of displacement. And, we keep talking about, building an inclusive project. And, I was really disappointed to see that the project's affordability levels changed from 60% area median income to 70%, making it out of reach for many of our lower income families. And I support workforce development. I support affordable home ownership. And the reality is home ownership is not within reach for everyone. And we're in desperate need of affordable rental units. And that's what we need to create an inclusive project. And I fear that approving this project before it's met the requirements of the Fair Housing Commission, it severely undermines our city's fair housing efforts. And additionally, it sets a precedence for other projects saying that, from affirmative fair housing doesn't matter. And so I just urge the BPDA board not to approve this project until the fair housing issues have been addressed. Thank you.
Thank you. George, you can unmute yourself.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can, George.
My name is George Lee, and just want to say I think the BPDA is playing games with the community. There was a lot of talk in the beginning of, this isn't the final approval, this is the first step, but that's the same kind of talk we've heard for the past few years. It's like Lucy pulling the football away from Charlie Brown. Kirk Sykes, for example, continued in meetings to say, I'll answer that question next time, and then wouldn't answer the question, or later on just stopped even responding to some of residents' concerns again and again as if they weren't real around displacement, around affordable housing solutions. When the city's own committee says that the displacement is real and that the project does need to take more steps around affordable housing. And the developer even had the goal to increase the AMIs from 60 back to 70. So it's just, the BPDA has not earned our trust to say, we'll wait until later to address fair housing. So, shame on the developers for playing those games, shame on the BPDA for spreading these happy talking points around, look at all the good things about the community process and 500 meetings and what the developer is doing when the BPDA says, hey, it's great that they're doing 10% family housing, it's great they're doing 70% AMI. Those are the exact things that BPDA said fell short of what fair housing demands. And shame on the mayor and the BPDA for letting this vote happen when the AFFH assessment is incomplete. It's a blatant sign that protecting BIPOC residents and families isn't a priority, even though there's all this talk about caring about displacement. It's just business as usual. So Kirk, you avoided answering questions again and again about fair housing solutions. You avoided responding to the BIFDEX claims, and I'm wondering if you'll take some time tonight to answer directly. Will you lower the average AMIs to 60% AMI or below? Are you going to include 30% AMI units? Are you going to work with the BHA on solutions like project-based vouchers? Are you going to do 20% two bedrooms? Those are the types of questions you've been ignoring. And to the board members, are you going to just ask softball questions to them? Or are you going to hold the developers accountable to the things that, again, 5 city agencies have said this project is falling short, that it's not addressing enough of the need for people of color and families and voucher holders? So I hope the board actually asks some serious questions and doesn't just say, oh, we'll wait until the next vote, because probably when the next vote happens, you are just going to give them a pass again. So make them answer the questions now. Thank you.
Thank you, George. Chaton Green, you can unmute yourself.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can.
Hi, my name is Chaton Green. I'm the business agent for the Boston Building Trades Unions. We represent over 35,000 members and their families, as well as thousands of members who reside in each neighborhood of the city. I'm a proud, lifelong Boston resident. I started my career on the UMass Boston project, science building, in 2014 with my local union. I want to thank the BPDA, members of the board, Madam Chair. You do a great job facilitating these important meetings. Thank you to Accordia Partners for being great partners with the Boston Building Trades Unions. And thank you for the great work and dedicated planning that goes into making Dorchester Bay City a good project. The work done on this job will be union built with a PLA, which will help to build great careers for residents and members of the building trade. Because we know that great careers directly help build great communities in so many ways. Being able to build more affordable housing and also being able to work where you live with easy access by busing train to a job site is a plus for residents. Union sites are also the safest sites because our investments are top priority, and we prove it through education and training, through apprenticeships and pre-apprenticeship programs like Building Pathways, which I'm also a graduate of. Every worker should have access to great wages, health care, and retirement benefits, because that's what it takes to raise the family in the communities of Boston. On behalf of the Boston Building Trades Unions, we support this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to testify about this project? Please raise your hand. Okay. Orlando Perilla, you can unmute yourself.
Good evening, everybody. Our point will be, at the end of the day, the most impacted, positively or negatively, with this project. For 4 years, we have had conversations with BPDA, with Kirk Sykes, with Richard Galvin, with St. Kevin, Catherine O'Neill, and Jill Griffin. It has been very productive. And of course, since we're going to be dealing with this project for the next 2 decades, plus or minus, imagine, the traffic jams, the noise, the dust, and another number of inconveniences to the 3,400 residents that we have in Harbor Point. In Harbor Point, we have 1,289 units. 400 of those are subsidized, low-income residents. We have gone back and forth with Accordia. They have listened to our concerns, our grievances, transportation, resiliency, education, job training, linking the project with the schools. And I can tell you, members of this distinguished board, and Madam Priscilla Rojas, that it has not been easy. It has been difficult to go through the process. As maybe as recently as the last meeting that we had, Caitlin can testify to perhaps our frustration and how we feel as we represent 3,400 residents. We have an elected board. These board members have been extremely active in this whole process, reading documents, looking exactly into what is better for this community. Because it's not gonna be an easy process. It's gonna be tough. Just imagine yourself, hearing piling. I don't know what time they're gonna start, but we have to be, cognizant of what is gonna happen and stuff like that. So, having said all this, I think that we at this point in all these different topics of transportation, resiliency, and the others that I mentioned, recreation, education, we are very satisfied with the latest conversations. Things have been put in writing. The board is extremely, extremely thankful to Accordia. And having said all this, we trust that Dorchester Bay City will be a transformative new neighborhood. Therefore, we, the Harbor Point Task Force, and the residents of Harbor Point, give our total support to this project, and we ask the BPDA committee to give approval to this project. We thank you for that.
Thank you, sir. Evan George, you can unmute yourself.
Hi, thank you. My name is Evan George. I am a Dorchester resident. I use the JFK UMass stop as my T, and I am speaking unequivocally against this development. It takes what is the worst elements of the seaport, the worst elements of Kenmore Square, combines them, and then puts it in a flood zone. The current levels of AMI are at 70%. For a family of 4, that is over $103,000 a year. And the idea that a 6-figure household is the bare minimum, the poorest people that will be allowed to live in this establishment is, again, insulting and offensive to even use the word affordable. I fully expect the BPDA to approve this project, as many of the new developments, especially considering the seaport, have been approved for the number one reason that what we are allowing to drive housing in Boston is not what is in the best needs of the people here, what is not going to bring great jobs or living community, but what will make the investors of this development the most money. And the tension with all of these is that the more we ask for more affordable units, more family units, the developer will always push back and say, it'll make it untenable, we can't afford it. So for me, a very easy solution to treat this community like adults with the respect they deserve is simply, what is the expected return on investment? How much money, how many millions of dollars, tens of millions, are these developers expecting to rinse out of Dorchester? And this community should look at that number and say, is this appropriate? Can we find a middle ground so that we are not bled dry? I fully think in 10 years, I will be bartending at one of these restaurants, but I also expect that I will be displaced from my current neighborhood, and I will simply have to travel by bike to get to what will be my new and future job. Cannot say it enough. Please vote no against this development. Thank you.
Thank you. Lisa Thornhill, you can unmute yourself.
Good afternoon. Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Hi, good evening. My name is Lisa Thornhill. I'm a stash participant. My children and I live in Dorchester. I've lived in Boston most of my life. And I would like to thank Accordia, BPDA, and MAHA for the affordable home ownership that will result from this program and project. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Would anybody else like to testify about this project? Please raise your virtual hand. We only take testimony from people once, Markeisha. Would anybody else like to testify on this project? Charles, you can unmute yourself.
Yeah, my name is Charles Guy Perry. I live in, right now I'm in Savin Hill. I moved out in Dorchester because you know why? I don't get a permanent residence because, hopefully next month I will have a permanent residence. But this project, as it is right now, I don't like it. It leaves a sour taste in my mouth. 70%, you could displace a lot of people. That's all I want to say. Just going to displace people. You put on a red line right in the middle, building the dome. In the word itself, Dorchester City itself, you're isolated. It's an isolation thing. Take the word city out of it. Maybe you'll get better response. And maybe if you lower your AMI, your investors will get less money. Sorry about that. But they still get some kind of profit. And that's what it is. I'm being blunt. It's profit. And that's all I'm going to say. Thank you.
Would anybody else like to testify about this project? Sarah, you can unmute yourself.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam Chair and board members. Thank you for the opportunity of speaking, and I want to be very sensitive to all the comments that I've heard. I do want to thank Cordia Partners for welcoming our project. It's a small piece, but it really speaks to all that's been expressed here. It's a landmark that expresses equality, diversity, and inclusion. The Sun poem will be showcased in it. Mayor Wu, when she was a city councilor, passed a resolution recognizing this poem to promote equality for all people. Dr. Landsmark might be familiar with it. It says, "Are you greater than the sun that shines on everyone? Black, brown, yellow, red, and white, the sun does not discriminate." The Boston City Council this year unanimously passed a resolution recognizing the Sun poem to be a powerful tool to ignite change. I want to thank Cordia Partners for welcoming this landmark to be part of their public space, because it will impact the present and future generations. And you cannot pass laws or policies that remove people's policies. People have to change from within. That's what this poem can do for the city, for America, and for the world. So I thank you all for the opportunity to present this poem to you. I thank Cordia Partner for welcoming us on this project that we've been dedicated to now for 30 years. So thank you so much for the opportunity to speak and share, and for your ability to listen for 2-3 hours and all these public meetings. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to testify about this project? Please raise your virtual hand. Would anybody else like to testify about this project? Gail, go ahead and unmute yourself. Gail?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Oh, thank you. Hi, my name is Gail Appling. I'm a member of MAHA, and I'm also a homeowner. I'm also a graduate of the homeowner program, and I'm so grateful right now that I was able to sit here and listen to this program that you guys presented tonight. I'm thankful for MAHA and for Arcadia and Cordia and everyone who's put their hand to the plow to get this project up and running and off the ground. But I think that there's just a little bit more that needs to be done before it gets approved. And I'm listening to both sides of the story. Can you still hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. And I'm listening to both sides of the story. And I think that there's just a little bit more work that needs to be done to really make this truly a win-win situation for everybody. It seems like there are still some issues that need to be worked out with the AMI and all that. I know that I am still priced out of the market to buy a home, and I'm still trying to get there. And I know how it feels to some people, especially people who want to buy homes for their children and get, obtain generational wealth, and because I want the same thing. So I'm just urging everyone who is to make a decision on this project to please make the right decision. Don't make it, for the developer. Don't make it for just Dorchester. Make the right decision for everyone involved so that people who live in the community can stay in the community, and for the developer, of course, to make something from it, but not to close anybody out, not to push anybody away. We need to be fair for everyone. That's what inclusivity means, being fair to everyone, including everyone, no matter where they are on the totem pole, whether you're high income or low income. Everybody needs to have the opportunity to have housing. It's our right. So thank you for listening to me, and have a great night, everyone.
Thank you, Gail. Desalia Gomez, you can unmute yourself.
Thank you. Hi. I feel like as a Boston resident, I live in Dorchester. I really feel like this project is something that is wonderful. I think it provides opportunities, and it's something that we need overall for the growth of our city. That's all.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is there anybody else who would like to testify about this project? Is there anybody else who would like to testify about this project? We're only taking testimony from people once this evening. Madam Chair, I believe this concludes the public hearing portion of this meeting.
Okay, thank you, Secretary Polhumus, and thank you to everyone for attending and for providing your input. It's really important. So, as this is a public hearing, to the developer, you do have the right to offer a rebuttal on anything that was said, or we can move into board questioning. Either one is fine.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Before the Accordia team gets into their rebuttals, I just want to speak to a couple of the comments tonight that you heard in regards to AFFH. I do want to go back to the size and scale of this development. The proponent had originally came into the BPDA seeking Article 80B approval for the entire site. Because of the size and scale, the BPDA directed the developer to scale back their approval request to only Article 80C PDA master plan approval, which is the vote in front of you tonight. When the project comes back in for each phase of the development phase, and Article 80B approvals for each specific building, the BIFTIC will review and provide comment on AFFH intervention options when there's an Article 80B project in front of the agency for review. AFFH intervention options will review many of the items brought up as comments and concerns tonight, such as a deeper affordability levels, unit mix, the inclusion of Group 2 units, and other intervention options. The proposal in front of you tonight has set a floor for what each phase can include, but there will be further process as the project in each building take place. The specific AFFH commitments for each phase and residential building, including those outlined tonight and any additional commitments made after additional review processes take place, will be memorialized in the cooperation agreements with the BPDA. High-risk displacement as defined by AFFH needs to choose the baseline intervention options plus an additional intervention options. I just want to remind the board and all of the members here tonight that the proponent is committed to the following intervention options, which is above the requirement of AFFH. A 20% commitment, or approximately 391 new income restricted units, will be inclusionary development policy units at an average of 70% AMI, with a range of area median income from 30% to 120%. This is a commitment above the required 13% of IDP currently. A commitment to providing 10% of all IDP units as family-sized units. A commitment to working with the Boston Housing Authority to deepen the affordability of units through project-based vouchers or other opportunities. A commitment to exploring housing creation opportunities through directing their linkage commitments to new home ownership opportunities in Dorchester. A commitment to paying the full linkage payment at the time of each building permit is granted, rather than making linkage payments over a period of time as permitted by code. a $10 million commitment to the Massachusetts Affordable Housing Stash Program. The Stash Program provides match savings grants to first-generation homebuyers and provides financial literacy sessions to help program participants be able to afford a home. To date, the Stash Program has led to 40% of their participants' homes being purchased in Boston. A commitment to work with the applicable city entities such as affirmatively furthering fair housing and creating a marketing plan that is developed to ensure that the project is affirmatively furthering fair housing through when the units come online. These are just some of the things that they've committed to throughout the process so far, but I'm happy to turn it over to the Accordia team if they'd like to speak to any of the commitments further.
Caitlin, I think you did a great job of clarifying, a lot of our conversation tonight around AFFH, and I just want to reaffirm that we will undergo the AFFH process for every building as we come back under the building entitlement process. So if we are approved tonight, which we hope we are committed to continue to dialogue with stakeholders as we have for 4 years and 500 meetings. This is whether it's Harbor Point on transportation or affordable housing advocacy or even, any topic that hasn't come up. So all I can say is I think we've demonstrated our commitment to be willing participants in a process that is inclusive and should be for a project this size, and we look forward to continuing that. So with that, I guess it goes to the board for whatever questions you may have for us, please. Chairman Rojas.
Thank you, Mr. Sykes. So any questions or comments from the board?
I've got a couple. There's many things I like about this project. I see the benefits, adding almost 2,000 units of housing, which we're really sorely in need of supply, thousands of jobs, construction and permanent, and the transportation infrastructure commitment is important. The open public space and the UMass partnership, I was impressed with that, and I could see some real benefits with job training there. On the transportation and the infrastructure, I know it's a multi-agency issue, but I'm afraid private developers sometimes move a lot quicker than some of our government agencies. There's gridlock around this area, Morrissey Boulevard, K Circle, all the time. So whatever we can all do to try to drive that so that the project doesn't get underway before the infrastructure is there. So that's an observation. And I just like to comment too, to hear from so many successful Maha owners, that's critically important. The real estate pricing, apartments, housing prices, it's not a local problem, it's a national problem. But there's things we can do at the margin to try to help out. That's certainly one. To hear so many success stories was good to hear tonight. But I do see this project adding supply, trying to assist with support and affordable housing, and working to try to maintain some affordability on site, in my opinion, are all positives. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Miller. Just want to assure you, we're about 3 years into a combined transportation working group between the city and the state on tackling these issues, and we have had some success, such as getting the JFK Red Line stop put on the capital budget and capital campaign. We are conducting conversations with Washington, with Fed DOT to try and figure out how we access dollars, and all of that is in partnership with the city and the state. So we're hard at work at it, and we've got a long way to go, but trust us, we understand how essential it is to unlocking the potential of this site and to being able to support the infrastructure. So thank you.
Thank you.
I would just add that 500 meetings, give or take, over the last few years suggests that there is an ongoing commitment on the part of the proponents here to carry forward with dialogue and to make changes, which they have, in this project. And My expectation is that dialogue will continue after our vote, whatever the vote is tonight. There is a long-standing commitment to address this particular site. It's time for us to move forward, and not only in terms of providing more housing, but also dealing with all of the issues of resilience and demographic change and transportation impacts that this project is going to have. So I provide assurances on behalf of the BPDA that however tonight's vote works out is not the end of the process.
Absolutely.
Through the chair, Doctor, I definitely second that thought. I just hope, Mr. Sykes, that you continue with the engagement, which I think in good faith with the community. And I think actually Caitlin as well, you did very well addressing and stating the fact that this is an ongoing process, and each phase of this project will go through a rigorous trial. So just keep doing what you're doing, Mr. Sykes, engaging with the community, and hopefully the community and the development team can come to a closer understanding.
We will do that.
Additional questions or comments? Well, I guess it just leaves me. Again, thank you to everyone who has participated. Thank you to everyone who has submitted a comment and a letter to let this board know how you feel about this very important part of our city. This isn't a decision that we take lightly, and one that we have gotten a lot of input in, and throughout this process, there has been a lot of input from various stakeholders, all the stakeholders really, that have very different agendas, different points, and so now we're here. Ideally, the BPDA process is a new committee, and you just want to really echo Dr. Landsmark on the commitment by me, by this board, to keep on with the affordable fair housing, affirmatively affordable fair housing, or the AFFH process, because it's not over. We will be getting additional input on every single project from this committee, and I guess just want to make that clear. There's still process to be had. However, there is a need to take a vote tonight. So it's not an easy one. It's one, but one that we are going to take. And I think much like a lot of other developers, when we're doing these planned development areas, this is a huge responsibility. A huge responsibility to the city, to its residents now and in the future. And I think that I appreciate the efforts, the meaningful efforts that have happened throughout this process and with the Porpita. I think with that, a motion is in order.
This has been a very informative meeting, and I would move that we move forward with a vote.
I second that.
Roll call for a vote. Dr. Landsmark.
Aye.
Mr. Miller.
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Thank you again, and we'll see you soon.
Yes, up 21 more times.
Yes.
Thank you very much. We really appreciate all you do, and we appreciate the community for their time, and we take our responsibility seriously, and we will be held accountable for it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Take care.
Okay. So let us circle back to the last item we were on, which is we're on number 19, correct? 88 Washington Street. Is that what's next? That's what's next?
That's correct, yep.
Great. Okay, so agenda item number 19. Request authorization to adopt a demonstration project plan under Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 121B, in connection with the 88 North Washington Street project, and adopt an order of taking for certain air rights above North Washington Street, and execute a deed conveying the taking to Boston Real Estate Collaborative LLC, and to authorize a co-petition to the City of Boston Public Improvement Commission to discontinue certain rights of the public above North Washington Street and to take all related actions. Sarah. Do we have Sarah on or Nick or?
I think you actually just,
did I do the wrong one again?
yeah, 19 is request authorization to co-petition.
Maybe I have the wrong agenda. Maybe it's an old one I have open. Hold on. My apologies, everyone. Let me go back.
So actually, I think 19, Nick, are you good to go, Nick?
I'm good to go, yeah.
Okay.
For 19 or do I move to 20? I'm so sorry. Very confused.
No, I think we're okay.
We're okay. Okay. Nick, you're going to on 88.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board, Chief Jamison, and Secretary Wilhelmus. I'm here before you to present the Seaport Square Sliver Parcel Land Exchange. Does that jive with the agenda? Okay, great. I'm seeing some nods. For several years, the City of Boston and the BPDA have engaged in a comprehensive planning process with respects to the future development of the South Boston waterfront area in Boston. It includes provisions for rezoning, parks, view corridors, street connections, transportation improvements, and public amenities. A part of that planning involves the formulation of a...
I'm sorry, Nick. I did read the wrong.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry. I thought you did too, Madam Chair.
Yeah. Yes, there were. It was from an older version of the agenda. So my apologies, everyone. Okay, number 19. Request authorization to co-petition the City of Boston Public Improvement Commission to discontinue portions of the layout of Seaport Boulevard in South Boston and to adopt an order of taking for parcels G1 and G2 and to enter into and execute deeds to convey parcels G1 and G2 to Seaport G Title Holder LLC or to another affiliate, and enter into and execute an indemnification agreement with Seaport G, and to take all related actions. Nick. Nick, you gotta take yourself off mute though. It's not gonna work.
Okay, so I'm here before you to present the Seaport Square Sliver Parcel Land Exchange. For several years, the City of Boston and the BPDA have engaged in a comprehensive planning process with respects to the future development of the South Boston waterfront area in Boston. That includes provisions for rezoning, parks, view corridors, street connections, transportation improvements, and public amenities. A part of that planning involves the formulation of a proposed traffic and street grid system. In furtherance of the BRA's effort to advance the plans, formerly the BRA, now the BPDA, on October 1st, 1997, the BRA authorized the director to enter into an agreement with the McCourt-Broderick Limited Partnership, a property owner in the South Boston waterfront area, providing for the transfer and exchange of land and other property rights and the performance of certain other obligations needed to assemble the rights of way required for the construction of certain public improvements in the South Boston waterfront area. The McCourt agreement provides for the transfer by McCourt to the city and/or the BPDA of approximately 67,500 square feet of land and other property rights, and the transfer by the city and/or the BPDA to McCourt of approximately 67,500 square feet of land and other property rights in the right-of-way no longer needed by the city. Nearly all of those conveyances have been completed. The intents of the transfer and other agreements entered into with other neighboring property owners in the South Boston waterfront area was to enable the Massachusetts Department of Transportation or proponents of development projects in the South Boston waterfront to realign and reconstruct Northern Avenue, extend Service Road and Thompson Place to the realigned Northern Avenue, reconstruct Seaport Boulevard, and further to enable the Massachusetts Bay Transportation Authority to construct the South Boston Piers Transitway project and all such improvements and amenities being contemplated by BPDA and city planning efforts. Construction of the realigned Northern Avenue has been completed and is open to public travel, which allows several of the land exchanges required by the McCourt agreement to be completed. To effectuate the final layout of Northern Avenue, Pier 4 Boulevard, and Seaport Boulevard, and assemble the Seaport Square Block F and Block G sites, a number of actions have been necessary, including petitioning the Public Improvement Commission for discontinuances of portions of Northern Boulevard, Pier 4 Boulevard, Seaport Boulevard, and the transfer of land to affiliates. All previously agreed upon actions have been performed with respect to all of the parcels of land, except for those actions that relate to two sliver parcels, parcel G1, 57 square feet, and parcel G2, 179 square feet. To complete the assemblage of Block G site and finalize the layout of Seaport Boulevard, parcels G1 and G2 must be acquired by the BPDA from the city by a taking, discontinued as a public way by the PIC, and transferred to Seaport G. In connection with said actions, Seaport G will be required to enter into an indemnification agreement. Following the recording of the taking and the discontinuances by PIC, the BPDA shall transfer parcels G1 and G2 to Seaport G. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? Okay, hearing and seeing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second?
Roll call for a vote. Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. Mueller?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
The chair votes aye, motion passes. Okay, so we are done with projects. Let's move over to administration and finance personnel. Mike?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and the members of the board, Madam Secretary and Director Jemison. We have just one item for your consideration on the BRA agenda with the exact details that have been included in your board memos. We have two out-of-state travel requests, and that will conclude the HR personnel issues.
Okay, thank you. Questions or comments from the board? Hearing and seeing none, the motion is in order.
So moved.
Second?
Roll call for a vote. Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. Mueller?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye, motion passes. Okay, now we have contractual. I need a motion to pay bills.
I move that we pay our bills.
Second?
Okay, roll call for a vote. Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye, motion passes. Please pay the bills. And finally, director's update. Chief Jemison, the floor is yours.
Good evening, members of the board and all the folks listening, and thanks very much for joining us tonight. Members of the board, tonight you approved 2 new development projects totaling about 82 total residential units, about half of which were income restricted. The developer's cost estimate is about $32 million. These projects represent about 11,000 square feet of development and will put approximately 96 tradespeople to work when they're completed. Again, those are projects that were approved today. There were other kinds of approvals and actions that took place today. At this meeting, which is the first of 2, there's a second meeting of this board on the 28th of this month where other items will be considered. But I did want to touch on a few items that were discussed and in great detail today. But first, the first order of business is to welcome our newest board member, Raheem Shepard. I want to take a moment to say thank you for joining. Make sure everyone knows a little bit about you, that you're from Hyde Park. You're the regional manager for the North Atlantic States, regional council of carpenters for the city of Boston, and you know, with your move to join this board, we're recognizing the great service you provided for the ZBA in your past service to the city. Your membership on the board upholds our long-standing tradition of having union representation on this board. As a member, when you were a member of the ZBA, you reviewed development proposals which require zoning relief and worked to help the mayor's goal of rebuilding trust with communities through planning-led development, advancing equity, affordability, and resilience across all the functions of the city's review process. Raheem, thank you for your work. I look forward to working with you in the months and years to come. In addition, I also want to mention that our chair, Ms. Priscilla Rojas, was officially reappointed yesterday. I want to congratulate you, Chairwoman, as well on your reappointment. I also want to take a moment to talk about the last item, major development item we talked about, which was Dorchester Bay City. I want to say thank you to everyone who came out to talk tonight, and in particular, I want to congratulate the development proposer for this milestone. There's a lot of work that was highlighted that needs to continue to be done, but I think your commitment to the work has been demonstrated, and we're going to need a lot more of it together to make sure this project achieves the goals that you've set out for it and that we believe that it can obtain. The public benefits that were unlocked through this approval today include specifically this PDA master plan approval, include almost 2,000 new units of housing, 20% of which will be classified as affordable, and an average of 70% AMI. I do want to highlight that the then current IDP requirement for this project would have been 13%, and the developer made a significant concession going up 7 percentage points to reach approximately what's going to be a hybrid of what's going to be the future IDP, in addition to significant public realm improvements, new street system, very significant contributions to linkage, which I should add, based on negotiation, are being made at the beginning of the project, making more affordable housing available immediately when projects are commenced. Further, 10% of all IDP units were committed to be family-sized. These are an example of the kinds of things that the voluntary commitment to AFFH and the process of engaging with BPDA and accepting not just the one recommendation that's required, but 6 at this stage of the process. Those are examples of some of the things that come from the AFFH process and the way it's working at the PDA master plan stage. This approval is, I think, going to provide a certain important signal and guidepost about what we expect developers to do in terms of their time commitment, the energy and attention, and frankly, the commitment of money, resources, and to not just their project, but the broader community that we're going to continue to expect. This vote is the first in a long series, and I know that I think the developer probably in a lighthearted way suggests 21 additional approvals will be required. We know that that's true. We also know we're going to be needing to join hands together with the Commonwealth and potentially the federal government to make sure the infrastructure required to make this project successful is completed, funded, and installed. want to say job well done to all the staff and people participating, and appreciate the advocacy of the community. I think you're going to see as the development process unfolds, even more of your concerns reflected in the positive. I want to highlight just a couple last things. On parcel 12C, we've made some great progress redeveloping public land for public good here at the city, and the tentative designation of Asian CDC and the community builders to redevelop parcel P12C as part of that. The site was identified as a high priority opportunity site for community planning in our land audit, which we announced last year, and following years of community engagement. This development is a long-awaited opportunity to create a significant number of income-restricted units in an area that's experienced significant market rate development pressure. Development team's proposal includes 119 total income-restricted units, which will be a mix of rental and home ownership opportunities. We look forward to working with these teams as the development project progresses and brings much-needed affordable housing to Chinatown. Finally tonight, I wanted to maybe go back to the beginning of the meeting and highlight the Boston Water and Sewer RFP that we requested permission to release in our release a little bit later this year. This RFP is going to allow the properties adjacent to the Boston Water and Sewer facility, the parking lots, to be redeveloped in the Roxbury neighborhood of the city. The proposal is to turn these parking lots into mixed-use development that will fulfill the property's potential to address urgent community needs such as housing, community development, and climate resilience. This site was identified also as a high-priority opportunity in the same land audit as P12C. And we are excited to get the ball rolling to transform these lots into useful development for Roxbury residents. Also seeking responses that include equitable and affordable housing, including wealth creation opportunities through affordable home ownership, bolstering community infrastructure such as small business opportunities like daycare, laundromats, and because of the site's ability to address vacant parking lots, its special potential to address urban heat island effects. We're looking forward to the responses, and I want to thank the BPDA and MLH for Mayor's Office of Housing for their collaboration on this. Board members and listeners, again, it takes everyone's voice and participation to make this process work, and I think you heard that process in action tonight. I want to thank everyone for joining. I thank the board and the proposers for their projects and investments in the city, and wish you a good evening. Chair Rojas, welcome back to your role as the board chair. After being committed, I want to pass the control back to you.
Thank you, Chief Jemison. Okay, so welcome, Raheem. This is welcome to the board. So with that, I need a motion to adjourn this meeting.
So moved.
Second?
Roll call for a vote. Dr. Lansmore?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Meeting adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone, and we'll see you on September 28th.
Thank you all. Have a good night.
Good night, everybody.